Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And then to continue what we've had so far, we got Miranda.
Hello.
Like we said before, we're gonna have. Are you
filling in for Stoney
right?
still?
Are you gonna fill in pretty consistently? Is that the?
I think that's kind of the game plan.
Okay, cool.
You guys will get a few extra guest hosts and things,
Right.
but I think that's the game plan is to fill in for him.
Well,
So he can live precariously through
Right.
me while
There you
these
go.
podcasts are going on.
Right. I didn't want you to be like a one and done kind of thing, so I was like, I'm excited that you're.
How's Stoney doing?
He met with his neurosurgeon today, and they've ordered a whole bunch of tests. So that should happen in just over a week's time, and then we will be in a position to know a lot more about what his prognosis is.
Nice.
Okay.
This may be too personal, but like, is he in talks with the same people that helped him with his brain?
It's the same brain surgeon.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
actually, we formed a friendship with the brain
Love it.
surgeon when he had his tumor.
Right.
And so we've been over to his house, and and they in particular they formed a lovely friendship.
That's awesome.
So when I had the phone call from Stoney's employer that he was en route to the hospital with this traumatic brain injury, I actually called his neurosurgeon's office.
Wow.
And he was over there doing a surgery, but as soon as he finished, he came over and he took on the case
Wow.
right from day one.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping that, like, I mean, after going from one thing to the next, I was hoping
Well,
that he
it's
would
nice
have
to
some,
have that continuity.
Yeah.
It really is,
Some
because he
consistency.
knows what a fighter Stoney is, and
Right.
he knows, how motivated he is to get back to life. Like when he had his surgery last year, he was back at work within 30 days.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
He's
Impressive.
he's a tough guy, and he doesn't like anything holding him back.
Of course.
So this is going to be a little bit harder because
I mean,
there's so much involved. But I'm hoping that after all these MRIs and CT scans and X-rays, that we will know what we're dealing with.
That's awesome. I'm glad that, we had said a second ago, I'm glad that there's some consistency here that,
We've got 11 days, the countdown, 11 days till we know what's happening.
Okay. Well, I guess by the time this shows up, it'll be 9?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or 8, something like that. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Okay.
glad he seemed.
About a week.
He seemed like he's making progress in the positive. So it's going to be a slow road.
Okay.
I'm still giving him a hard time.
Of
I
course.
bet you are.
I hope that you'll give him a hard time for all of us, at least a little bit.
Keep prodding
I
him.
have
right,
to do
right,
that.
right. You gotta keep him on his toes. I love
Would
it.
you expect anything less?
I mean, no. I mean, because I know Stoney well enough that I know that if I was in a similar predicament, that he'd probably do the same to me. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure at some point in the show he said, "If I'm not picking on you, it probably means I don't like you."
That's
so,
right.
Hey, I'm giving him back what he gave to me so many times before. So, but anyways, what do we have on what we got for today?
I think we're going to dive into the whole UFO or UAP phenomenon. And I know you all discussed this in a previous episode.
Yeah.
What if aliens had landed on the White House lawn, which was an interesting episode. But
Right.
this episode, I think, is going to kind of dive more into the history of UAP phenomena and just kind of what's been going on, because it's been in the news a lot lately. Matter of fact, they had some congressional hearings on it. So
You're right.
it's serious.
Well, what do you? I guess for one thing, I have to say to start off this, is there a reason that I don't know about as to why they have all of a sudden changed the wording to UAP, which I think for those of you who don't know is unidentified aerial phenomenon. Is that what it is?
Correct.
Okay. Because I think I have an idea of why, but I just want to know if there's like an actual there's a reason why. Or is it just kind of
my understanding is this was an attempt to reclassify to minimize the amount of Freedom of Information Act requests
Right.
associated with the UFO phenomena. And, that's just a nice, convenient way the government does to try to dissuade. Oh, well, you didn't say UAP, so you're not getting that.
That's what I thought it was too, but
it may be something else.
Right. I really felt like if we're getting into this time in history where like there is a potential for aliens to, or they've already been here or whatever, I feel like they like rebranded it to give it some more credibility, because I think UFO has a certain stigma about it. Like,
well, I mean, it's kind of been associated with the crazy people, and
of course, yeah,
the people on the fringes, and
by design.
Right.
I mean, it's a good way of basically quashing a subject,
right?
And just simply say, hey, it's crazy people are doing it.
Right.
The term UFO has been used for like 70 odd years. And so we've had this constant drip of information for this whole time period. But, I think that in more recent years, we're seeing a lot of phenomena that is over bodies of water.
Right.
And, they don't want to predicate the information based on the premise that it is aliens. What if they're people from a different time period?
Right.
What if they're jinn? What if they're, aquatic animal? Like, what if they're just something else? What if we've got this whole multi-universe thing, and we've got all these universes stacked upon one another, and it's just something from a different place or a different time that's kind of popping through areas of weakness and coming back out, and we're kind of seeing that.
Yeah.
So, the UAP takes the word alien out of the equation,
right.
So they can be more generic, but it also, it allows for them to be a little sneakier with what
right.
they do as well.
Well, of course. I mean, that's just how it is. But I mean,
name of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing that. But I just saw something real quick. According to the National UFO Reporting Center, there is an actual website I found on this, which they said they're 49 years in operation. There's been over 170,000 sightings of UFOs. And it's updated pretty much daily. And a lot of the reported sightings are actually coming in from military personnel and aviation personnel are seeing. And of course, they're utilizing conventional channels, which the military has to report UAPs. But
I think some of the stigma is coming off of it, because before, if you were a pilot and you reported that you saw something flying off your wing, you were never going to fly again. You were going to be blacklisted.
Yep.
You could just say goodbye to your career. And so there's a lot of pilots out there that have quite a few stories, but they only kind of tell it to their closest friends when they're having a few drinks.
Right.
It's not something that they publicly ever admit to, because before it was career suicide to do so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If it's something that's, I mean, I think it's legit. I just think there's too much out there. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. There's just too many reports of objects doing things that are far beyond our conventional abilities to engineer aircraft like that.
Right.
But it's still, to the general population, it's still kind of probably viewed as a little fringe. And I don't think that's going to change. Now, I've got some stats on, I think, some shifting opinion on that. And I think people are awakening to that idea that, there's probably something there. But I found this top 10 list of U.S. cities with the most UFO sightings. Did you see this?
I did not.
Uh-oh.
What is the number one city?
Gulf Shores. Gulf Shores, Alabama.
I want to say somewhere like in Nevada or like New Mexico or something like that.
Oh, you're kind of close.
That's what I would imagine.
Spokane, Washington.
Whoa.
Everybody could be high, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
According to that, they have 51.73 sightings per 100,000 people.
Wow.
The next city is Tucson, Arizona.
There you go.
At 45.06 sightings. And then it's followed by Albuquerque,
Okay.
Boise, Idaho, Colorado Springs, Las Vegas, Jackson, Missouri,
Okay.
Wichita, Kansas, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington.
Those are kind of forming two corridors.
Yeah, it's 2 camps.
So, yeah, that's the top 10 cities where if you want to see a UFO.
Right.
Or
talk to people who've seen them.
Yeah.
I remember back in the, I'm going to date myself, probably in the late 80s, there was a magazine out called UFO.
Okay.
And I used to walk downtown in the snow to go and get it when it came out. And I remember there was like all these things being seen in Gulf Shores. And so, now that living down here in the South and you see Gulf Shores, you're like, okay, there was nothing else out there.
Right.
But the trend is a lot of these are around military bases or open tracts of government land that have closed airspace, or there's not a whole lot of people living underneath that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Now
that is interesting.
I will say I have
For how much crazy's in Florida, I'm surprised we didn't get it.
I think there's a lot in Florida.
We didn't get a Florida on that list. I don't think.
I mean, like, what was that movie that came out? It was several years back. But that happened out in the Pacific Northwest, and based on that list,
like the Travis Walton thing, that was up.
That
in the
was
West
was it
Pacific
called?
Northwest.
Was it called Fire in the Sky?
I think so.
I don't know what that is.
There were loggers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great movie. All those guys end up passing lie detector tests of what they saw.
Wow.
One of those guys was abducted and then returned
like 4 days later or something.
So
crazy.
Yeah. It's
which begs another question: why do we have decades of alien abductions and people reporting almost the same thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
If there was no truth to it, the stories would be different.
I think I kind of harken back to a line on the first episode of the X-Files. Remember the X-Files?
Such a good show.
Great.
Yeah.
Man, they just don't make stuff like that anymore. But there was a scene at the very end of the first episode where Mulder, he's the FBI agent that's now working in this, this section dealing with paranormal and UFO type stuff. So, but he meets this senior kind of mysterious guy in some football field, and they're talking about, what's going on. And that's that guy says, Agent Mulder, they've been here a long time. So, I do believe they've been a long time. I mean, there have been sightings of UFOs going actually way back.
There's Renaissance paintings with them in it.
Exactly.
And there's Egyptian hieroglyphics showing them.
Yeah, I mean, like I've showed one here. It says the Kenneth. The UFO. Okay, where does it say here? For instance, Julius Obsquines, a Roman writer in the 4th and 5th centuries, wrote about the arrival of wondrous things, including unidentified phenomena in the sky, whereas legends from Germany and Switzerland describe battles in the sky in the 16th century. In the U.S., the first recorded UFO sighting took place in the year 1639.
Gosh.
John Winthrop, governor of Massachusetts Bay region of that time, reported a flying object witnessed by a man named James Everell. According to the description of the UFO taken from Winthrop's diary, the unidentified object was seen over a muddy river in Boston. It had flames and could contract in size.
Wasn't one of the battles that George Washington led, wasn't he kind of guided by a UFO across a river as well? Like there's some sort of American history.
There may be. I didn't find that, but I mean that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, there's so much material, and I think most people have probably seen, have heard of the guy by the name of Bob Lazar, and Bob has been on this crusade since probably I would think the early '80s, which he claimed he was a researcher at Area 51. And now, of course, they will say they have no record of him ever being an engineer at Area 51, right. Which that wouldn't surprise me because the government's good about denying everything. So, take it for what it's worth. But he has spent his entire life, and now recently, they had a big press conference with a lot of high-ranking former people that have come forward about, yeah, the government's been involved in the UFO game in a long time. Actually have retrieved down aircraft and have been attempting to
And bodies.
reverse engineered tech. So I believe that what's been keeping this hidden is the military industrial complex.
Right.
And Dwight Eisenhower even mentioned that in his speech when he was leaving. I think he started seeing signs of what is the modern apparatus today. That is probably the entity that is controlling this whole thing.
I think we talked about it a few episodes ago, and I forgot how I got onto the subject. We were talking about something, and I had talked about the fact that the fact that that the technological boom of everything from basically the 70s to now and how it's just been expedited has been because supposedly they have found alien tech and been able to reverse engineer it and help boost us forward up until, the modern age right now.
It's very possible. For as long as I've been in this country, I always went to school with people that were former military or in different positions of power. And, it was kind of a universal thing. Like whatever technology we come out with now, the government's already had that for 15 to 20 years.
Right.
So, we're not doing anything innovative. They've got all the innovation, and it's just on what kind of schedule they roll it out to us.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's probably that time is shrunk down as well. Whatever tech's coming out right now, the government's probably had for 5 or 10 years. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting to that point too, where it's because I feel like things are, things are growing at a very rapid rate. I think
it's like how they have the big phone banks in Utah that record all of our phone conversations, and people think that's just new technology. Well, Iran had that back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So if Iran, a little country had that in the 1970s, we probably had it in the 50s.
Yeah. Right.
Well, according to a Pew Research poll, 65% of Americans say their best guess that intelligent life exists on other planets, which I think has grown over time.
Probably.
51% say that UFOs reported by people in the military are likely evidence of intelligent life outside Earth. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence released an annual report on UFOs, which revealed that the office tracking UAPs has had a total of 510 sightings since 2004, and with 366 additional sightings added to that list last year. A website called UFO Hunters provides a chart of UFO reports by year showing that there were around 5,000 reports in 2022. Another website, Satellite Internet, ranks states with the most UFO sightings, with Idaho, Montana, and New Hampshire at the top. That's crazy.
Yeah,
border states.
It may be because of the fact that I've only ever heard alien talk out of Area 51 or Roswell, New Mexico.
It's out west, right?
Yeah, it's always in the desert somewhere. I feel
it's less population too.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, you can make the argument if you're trying to understand what potential intelligent life would think and how they would try to interact with us. Right. They probably would not go into highly populated areas. Not to say they don't, because there have been reports of them over cities and everything else, but it seems to be the interactions are out in the rural areas, or where there's not a lot of activity. So it's just it's an interesting topic. I'll be very curious with this Bob Lazar, this big press conference he had and everything. I mean, he claims that his life has been under threat for years.
He's an interesting character.
He is. He's not even a. I believe he's a doctor. I don't think he's even an engineer. I mean, I forget. I read somewhere what his background is. I believe he was actually a medical doctor.
Really?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, some people say he's just full of crap.
Right.
There are people who say, well, he hadn't produced any evidence and on and on and on. But
there is a well-known UFO, UAP journalist named George Knapp, and he has been on like Coast to Coast AM for decades.
Good old Coast to Coast.
He's written books. He's really kept his finger on the pulse of what's going on in this community. And he actually took Lazar to the Los Alamos labs, and not only did Lazar know his way around the whole complex perfectly, but people there knew him.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so, despite the government saying he never worked there, that's
Right.
kind of, that made George Knapp a believer.
This man's never worked here, and he walks in and was like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?"
Yeah.
As I said, the government's good at denying
Oh,
things.
of course, even things that are-
Deny.
Well, if he was lying, what has he gained from it? Because, it was career suicide. His life was ruined. His personal life was ruined. He got divorced and, shunned and everything for this. He became virtually unemployable. And yet he has never wavered from his story, despite being the brunt of jokes for decades. So I think you have to give the man some respect for sticking to his guns.
Yeah, I mean, to me, human nature is, once you're confronted by something that completely changes your whole perspective on life, I don't think you can stuff that back in the tube. I mean, it's out. I think someone like him and they have others out there that are probably carrying terrible secrets.
Yeah.
What does someone that is actually confronted with the realization that I hear on the table are two alien bodies? I mean, it's one thing to speculate how you would react spiritually,
Right.
psychologically,
Right.
when you're actually looking at it and go, this came from somewhere else out in the universe.
It challenges every paradigm you have.
Every paradigm you have gets thrown out the window. Now, some people say the reason they don't want to talk about this stuff is because it would completely upend society.
Oh, of course.
The fear of that is people would lose their religion. They would quit this. They would do that. We're not alone in the universe, and we're not everything is us. I kind of view God bigger than that. I know some people get a little kind of get challenged in that regard, but God can do whatever He wants.
Right.
Who am I to say?
Well, He did a lot in 7 days here.
Exactly.
So what was He doing for the rest of His time?
So I mean, the idea that there be other life out there, I think it's a very good possibility. Just the mathematics work in that favor of other life, because, as I said, the idea of the universe. I mean, just you go outside and you just look up at the sky and just go.
Oh, yeah.
We're one little tiny little speck of a piece of little rock that's floating around a mid-sized star in a very small in a small solar system.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have life without the moon.
Yeah.
So it's such a configuration of events, that perfect series of events that allows for life here. Yet we've had, some, for lack of a better word, archaeological evidence coming from Mars, which looks like there was bacteria and things on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So that means life is popping up in multiple places. So statistically, if there's more stars out there and universes than what we have grains of sand on Earth, chances are we're not alone.
So what does that say for the Great Filter?
That's what I was about to say. I was like, there's a whole lot of stuff. We had a whole discussion about that. It's like, I mean, yeah, there's a likelihood that there is we always talk about aliens as though they're like far superior than us, that they have technology that has got them here, when it's like there could be
They could be us 200 years in the future.
and that's what I'm saying. I was like, they could
or 1,000
Or
years.
1,000 years.
Is a handful of, or I say a handful, hundreds of thousands of light years away? There's probably a planet that is going through the same stuff we're going through right now. Like in the galaxy as a whole, there could be a planet that is talking about the same things we're talking about, but they're just different.
Which is,
Right.
how visionary was Gene Roddenberry when you look at Star Trek and what he put out there, because that's what's happening.
Right.
Are we the prime directive?
Right. Is there a higher, more intelligent race that has been around for a long time, or is the fact that we have had millions of years to evolve to where we are right now? Are there other planets that are are we at the theoretical cap right now, where there's other planets that are all life-bearing planets?
We're a young system.
Right.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, our star is
right.
Our star is fairly young. It's still got millions of years left of energy. So, I mean, theoretically, the human race, if left to evolve on its own, I'm a firm believer that within a few hundred years we'll be out in the universe. We've developed tech, if we don't destroy ourselves. But right. Beyond that, or some extra. An impact event or something like that would happen to us. But if given time, I firmly believe the human race will reach the stars.
Yeah. We have a lot of junk DNA. Why is that? Has something altered us?
Right. Could be.
It's my first degree is in anthropology.
There you go.
You look at, we have millions of years of hominid development. Mm-hmm. And yet, about 200,000 years ago, Homo sapiens just kind of took off. And 100,000 years ago, Homo sapiens sapien took off again. And so we have these massive leaps that make no sense. Mm. Why all of a sudden, after millions of years of evolution, do we have something that jumps from, kind of running around on the Serengeti, being scavengers, mm-hmm. to having religion and having weapons and having tools and having burial rites? All of these things. What happened to make this big leap? So, it's...
Well, now you kind of get into Graham Hancock stuff with...
You'd hate that.
Oh no! Maybe we were maybe at one time we were more advanced, and then something happened and kind of knocked us back down into the Stone Age a little bit. But
I do believe that's happened several times throughout our development.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I think it's happening now,
I
because
was
if we had a catastrophic event where we had a big EMP and everybody lost their cell phones.
Yeah.
We did an episode about that on how many skills are lost.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't be able to, wouldn't be able to hunt, wouldn't be able to find food, wouldn't be able to dress
most
an
people
animal.
would starve to death.
They would. Well, look at the pandemic. People were panicking after 3 days with the grocery stores being closed.
Yeah.
So what would happen if we had a real catastrophic event?
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, the closest that I saw that comes closest to what I call that kind of breakdown, it was during Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, yep.
That was the closest to the
Gulf Coast.
Gulf Coast was destroyed. It was almost like an apocalyptic event. People wandering around. It was unbelievable at that time. But yeah, so it's, but all this UFO talk. But believe it or not, I got all these surveys and what people have taken about kind of where the public's at with this issue. 87% of respondents said UFOs are not a threat.
I'm surprised by that.
Or a minor threat. Just 1 in 10 felt UFOs are a major threat to U.S. national security. Now, if you talk to the government, military officials have a completely different opinion.
Really?
Who's in the know?
Defense Department officials have previously commented that unidentified flying objects are real and pose a potential serious threat to the country. However, military officials also do not generally consider UFOs to have extraterrestrial origin.
So that makes me wonder, okay, what do they know?
Oh, yeah.
What do they know? Because you have that kind of comment. You have, the change in the verbiage on what they're called. And you have now there's a whistleblower type of thing that went through Congress that people can come out and say, if they've been in the military, they were involved in UAP cover-ups. I think, I'm not impressed with the information that the government is kind of dripping out right now, saying this is a soft disclosure, because I think anyone that has studied UFOs or listened to the material for the past 30 years, it's nothing new. There's nothing innovative. There's nothing new. But, and here's the big caveat is what's coming next? What are they trying to prepare us for? Because I swear a lot of Hollywood movies, like, the 4th of July with Will Smith and all these kind of Independence Day, and a lot of, there's a lot of alien movies where they come in and kind of take over the world, and you've got these cataclysms. What are they preparing us for?
Mm-hmm. This is a little bit in the same wheelhouse of the discussion we're talking about. There has been, over the course of like the past like couple of years or so, out in California, like numerous like pilots and people have like claimed to see a person with a jetpack, or what they assume to be a person that is like flying around. And just recently, like I have known of a guy who's been like innovating, like making like a jet suit, who has like little hand propulsion things or whatever. And I'm pretty sure that like all this happened around the same time that he has been like creating this sort of thing. So like it could be him. But then like I just recently saw like a video on YouTube that is like, it was a very hush-hush kind of like only special people can be a part of this. And it was people in full military garb that had a backpack with these like jet arms, these like little rocket propelled things that are powerful enough to lift you off the ground. And of course they had like a little preview of what it would look like for a strike team of 2 or 3 people to come off of a ship in the water, to fly onto the coast and then like take out a subject, and then of course evacuate from like a scenario or whatever. And they're all and like, of course, everyone's like, oh, whoa, wow, how so innovative. And everyone's like talking about it. And I was like, it just makes me think, like, are all these pilots in that area just like seeing these like little test subjects of like he's just a guy trying to test out this, or is it like the military that are actually like have had hands on this technology for a little bit and of course are now trying to?
Well, we've seen an evolution of the reports, because in the 50s they were flying saucers, and it looked like 2 milk tins, upside down. And, by the time, the 60s and the 70s rolled around, that had kind of changed to delta wing type of things, triangle craft. And then the government rolled out all these triangle craft.
Of course.
So, it's like, was it just test, was it just, super secret test stuff?
Right.
I have a family story about, somebody that saw something. My ex-husband's family lived in northern Ontario, and they weren't all that far. Remember the Avro Arrow? It was one of the first Delta Wing aircraft, and it was made in Canada, and there was a lot of collaboration between the U.S. government and the Canadian government on it. But, that might be part of the story, who knows. But one of his family members lived in this small town at the end of a 10-mile road. And this was 1959, 1960, and they were out on a date, and they were driving home, and a UFO followed them down the 10-mile road. And they kind of got spooked, and they stopped and turned around and headed back out, because there was only one way in and one way out of this town on Lake Superior. And it followed them. No matter what moves they did, if they stopped, it stopped. If they moved, it moved. And, so it kind of played, duck, duck, goose with them, for a period of time. Well, the next day, the U.S. military came to their house, knocked on their door, and debriefed them.
Whoa.
Why is the U.S. military up in Canada debriefing Canadian citizens?
There you go.
So, and this couple, the wife was, pretty much as straight-laced as you get.
Right.
So it was like, she would not tell any story. She wouldn't say, we have a joke, she wouldn't say poop if her mouth was full of it.
Right.
But, for them to have this story that has survived in the family lore, I was just like, but you hear that of the U.S. military showing up and debriefing people.
Right. I'm just showing them the video right now of of these
those little jetpacks they can put on.
There's like a little
that stuff's been around a long time.
Right. They're on like it looks like a submarine or some sort of like platform, whatever. They have like rifles strapped to their chest and whatnot. And of course,
that's a good way to. I mean,
right.
Think about it. Normally, you'd have to bring in people like that with a helicopter.
Right.
And you could just put these little jetpacks on them and let them just individually.
Right. I was wrong. It's a little 2-man team. And of course, they do a couple test runs of like what it's like to be on a platform, to go into like a little small dinghy boat, and then of course go like onto shore. And it's a whole bunch of stuff. Anyways, I saw that and I was like, that's crazy. And then of course, I know there's a guy who's just like, I think he's like an aviator, like of some kind, or just like a regular. And he has created that well before I've seen this.
See there,
this
Ian.
video.
If we had video, we could be video.
Oh, yeah, well, right.
This would be live, and we could show people the video.
Right. But anyway, so I just thought, it's that kind of stuff too, where it's like people are talking about it.
There's so much that we just don't know.
Right.
There's a lot we don't know.
One of the really interesting things. One last touching on Bob Lazar, because I found him fascinating. And like I said, I've been following stories on him for 3-4 decades. Was that Bob Lazar, why has he been raided so many times? So many of his laboratories have been raided to look for stolen government material. So, that...
He's upsetting the military-industrial complex is what he's doing.
Right.
And how much of the budget of the military-industrial complex is black? We don't even know what, because...
There's a ton of it.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
It feels like, what is it whenever... What is the phrase? Thou dost protest too much.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever whenever someone says something, and of course, like, that's not me. I would never do that. I would not in a million years would I do that. It's like, okay, well,
but they've been doing that since Roswell.
But what I'm saying is like it's one of those things where if someone is, it's only if someone was talking crazy talk, like I have a jetpack system, right? Saying all these like crazy things, and then no one makes contact with it, or it's like, oh, it's just a bunch of hubbub or whatever. Then it's that I think is more, that falls into the camp of, oh, it's just a crazy person who's babbling on. But the second one, like whenever that you get involved and you start like you're kind of showing your hand a little bit, like, oh, well, you seem awfully interested in what this guy is doing over here. I wonder why. Well,
it's not just the United States, and that's what's interesting, is that UAP and UFOs have been seen in every country of the world.
Right.
And there's several countries that have taken an official stance on it and confirmed that they have these reports and they have eyewitnesses and that they have stories. Canada's former ex-defense minister, Paul Hellyer, was one of the first well-known political figures to come out and confirm that not only do we have all these, recordings of these, but we have crashed materials.
Yeah.
And he was the longest-serving member on the Queen's Privy Council for Canada. So this isn't just, this little backwoods politician. This was a big deal. Japan, they recently they changed their policy and acknowledged UAPs. They call it Project Magnet. Brazil, they have their own project. Don't even ask me how to speak that in Portuguese. France has GEPAN, SEPRA, and GAIPAN. The Soviet Union has Institute 22. The UK has Project Condon. And then the USA, we've got Area 51. We have Project Blue Book. We have All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. We have Project Serpo, Robertson Panel. There's at least a dozen major things that have come out. And like I said, they just kind of drip information. They don't really say anything earth-shattering, but I think that they have spent the past 70 years trying to accommodate us to something that's going on.
Yeah.
I think I just think social media now has made it almost impossible
Yeah.
to keep some of this under wraps. And just be honest, just the amount of sightings. Eventually you get to a point, it's like, okay, we can't just say a bunch of kooks are saying this. I mean, everybody's seeing this now. I mean,
Right.
so there's something going on. Matter of fact, the modern era of UFO sightings actually began. It was in 47, is when all this kind of June 24th of 47. An American aviator, Kenneth Arnold, claimed reported seeing 9 bright blue-white objects flying in a V formation over Washington's Mount Rainier. Now, this is 1947. He estimated their speed at an amazing 1,700 miles per hour.
And those World War II pilots knew how to estimate speed because they didn't have the
We're
technology.
nowhere near close to getting those kind of speeds in 1947.
No.
We just were not. But yeah, it's I mean, they've got all kind of information, but just last year, May 17th, 2022, the first public congressional hearing was held at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. During that hearing, Pentagon confirmed that military personnel had reported at least 400 UFO incidents between 2004 and 2022. What's funny is until 2021, the UAP task force admitted to only 144.
I see.
So it's probably way underreported of what's being seen out there. So that's what I'm saying. Just like that UFO website, 177,000 sightings, and it's being constantly. It was so funny because I pulled it up, I was looking at it, and it's being constantly. It gives a date, what the person saw.
Was that MUFON or a different site?
It was the national, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
There's a lot of stuff coming out, like the Defense Department. I read that they're currently investigating 650 cases of unknown aerial incursions, but the official stance is that there is still no proof of alien activity. Well, again, that's that little shell game with their verbiage. Yeah. They're saying it's not aliens, it's no proof, but why are they investigating? Like, they're not saying what it is. They're not saying.
Well, and so this is where my cynical side comes out. And for me, like if you were to ask me specifically, do I believe there's aliens that is visiting Earth? I don't think so. I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be wrong. And this is what got me into a problem. We started talking about what happens if aliens were to fall on the White House lawn. I said the term, I'm cautiously optimistic, which is what got misconstrued into like I'm hoping the aliens come for other nefarious reasons that we won't get into. But so that's what I mean is like, am I saying that they're not real? I mean, I don't have any physical proof. I haven't seen anything, and anybody that has given me quote unquote substantial proof of like pictures and videos and stuff, I'm like, it's not compelling enough for me to go, I believe in that personally. But do I say that I have some sort of faith that there probably is some life out there, or that they have come around? Maybe. I don't want to say no to anything because you know what? I never say never because I'm always surprised by something probably. But whenever the military talks about like it's not alien activity, but we're not going to disclose what it is, I'm like, okay, well then that kind of leads me into the idea of like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're like constantly under surveillance from like other nations at play or something like that.
We're one of those ant farms.
Yeah, right.
Someone just getting ready to shake us up.
Right. So Ian, so you telling me you think all the alien or the UAP sightings,
not all of them,
are like tech from other countries?
No. And so this is where it's so hard because like I said, I don't want to say no. Because I believe that people have probably seen some things that they just cannot fathom, and it could be something out in space. I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably like some kind of some kind of phenomenon did happen that I don't have any kind of like hard evidence or proof to like discount what they're talking about. Again, do I have evidence, or do I have the same experience that they have? No, and that's why I don't want to discredit whatever people are saying. But some of the things that I have seen that do feel more like solid evidence, or pictures or videos and stuff, a lot of that kind of stuff feels more in the realm of like natural stuff and not supernatural, or not, beyond tech. So that's where I feel like I'm in this like middle ground of like,
Well, in June, and this was an article published on July 10th, it said in June, former U.S. Air Force and intelligence officer David Grusick told the debrief that intact and partially intact vehicles had been recovered by authorities, and that information was being hidden from U.S. lawmakers.
And so like some of that stuff, I'm like, that's probably real. Now, is that alien stuff? Is that, let's say hypothetically like Chinese, Russian stuff that we're not, divulging on for some reason? I mean, that could be at that too. For me, I am a man of faith, so I can believe something without physically seeing it. And so, like, do I have to have like hard evidence and like this has to be 100% real and see it with my own eyes to believe that aliens have come? No. But for it to like, for the conversation, for what people are talking about, that kind of stuff right now, at least, isn't like super affecting my life in a way. Like if all of a sudden like aliens are coming around and like kind of like messing up the cycle of things, or like, is really a question, like making me question my like day-to-day life, then I would be like, okay, now I want to get some more, I want to experience some things for myself. Personally, I have no like firsthand experiences, and the conversation of it and like the idea of aliens isn't really like a rock in my day-to-day world. So that's why I'm like, maybe it is. But also I don't have anything personal to recount. So at that point I'm like,
you might see somebody landing to get all that stuff on your front lawn.
You're right. Yeah.
No kidding, huh?
So it's like, who knows? I'm like, that's why I don't want to discredit anyone's personal experiences, because though, some people may have some really big things.
I think the reason the government or governments, because I believe it's a coordinated effort throughout the globe.
Right.
That's why I identify the military-industrial complex, because I think it makes up private contractors and international companies.
Right.
So there's handprints all over the globe. I believe the reason it's secret is because, let's be honest, whoever can reverse engineer this,
wins.
You're immediately the top dog,
right? And I'm pretty
on
sure,
the globe. You are. There's no one that can touch you.
I think I had brought that up one of our previous episodes. It may have been on the Great Filter or something else. I was like, "You're right." I think I had said something to the tune of that as well, where it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some alien, if it is real, and if they have harvested something. I would not doubt that we would all be the last person to know about it. So that way they can because like you said, whatever country can get their hands on it and can really make that stuff work is going to be making some bank.
Well, that's why I think, because I always like checking the sniff test. How does things smell, and what makes sense? In the medical world, we always use an expression. If you hear hoof prints, you think of horses, not zebras.
Oh, there you go.
So,
yeah, right.
But it's like when you look at all of this, because it's not just seeing craft in the sky.
Right.
There's alien abductions. There's cattle mutilations. We've got the UAP. We've got the underwater craft. We've had all the CIA mind control experiments. We've had the CIA psychic training and remote viewing. There's the whole multiverse explanation. So when you start adding all these things into the pot, and you say, okay, what rises to the surface? What's going on? I think that we can't possibly know, because we're not ever being told all the information to put together a great hypothesis on what is happening. But, do I think something is happening? I do. Mm-hmm. I really do. I do not think a lot of it is just other countries. I think that there are some countries that are fiddling around with different technology. Mm-hmm. But, the anthropologist in me, I read a book several years ago. I think the author's name was Jenny Randles. And it was on the history of Fae versus alien abductions. And so if you look into the historical accounts of Fae abductions around the world and Fae stories, there are, Fae make the little fairy circles. Well, what do we have? We have crop circles.
Right.
When a Fae takes you, they, it's like you can't eat the food or you're not coming back.
Right.
Like there's all these different types of things. And the old Fae stories, the Fae had craft. They were flying around, and people in the 1700s, they didn't know what flight was.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So if they're describing, these little contraptions that the Fae are flying around in, why is that? I think that we look historically through the lens of our current time period. And so it's like in the Bible, they talk about, the chariots of the gods and the wheel of fortune and angels coming on these burning wheels.
Yeah.
What if those weren't angels? What if those were aliens at the time? We don't know.
I heard somebody talk about that.
Because it's just the stories. We just have to look at the collective stories and see under what lens does it make sense in today's technology.
I had heard someone talk about that for like Revelations, like how there's like, and if you've ever read the book of Revelations at the end, like they talk about like a, 7-headed serpent or something like that, and something crazy that comes out of the water. Or like a dragon that flies.
That's the beast.
Yeah, the beast. Yeah, it's like so that
there's two beasts that come out of the sea.
And
I believe
someone had posed the idea of like obviously that was it John who was having that.
John,
who was having the
John
vision.
wrote a Revelation,
right? Is
the
it
apocalypse?
He was having a vision of the future of what was happening. So what if he was to have like this wonderful vision of the future, and it's actually like just a plane flying in the sky, but he doesn't know how to put. He doesn't know the terminology of plane, so he uses his idea of like it was a beast in the sky that was Believe
it or not, there are some people that are very religious that probably fall more in the lines of what I would kind of consider more fundamentalist in their approach to religion. Some people believe that aliens are actually not aliens; they're actually demons. I've heard that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like all these abductions, and
I see.
I have I don't go down there because I don't necessarily believe that per se, because demons are not physical. I mean, they're spiritual beings. These are actual. I mean, when you got recovered bodies, you have to account for that. I mean,
well, and X-rays of implants and scars.
Right. Yeah. There's a physical component to this, but. I mean, people, are these aliens, are they actually here to be hostile? I kind of take the approach, maybe they're not here to be hostile.
Right.
Maybe they're here to try to communicate with us. And this is the only way to really know how to do this without freaking everybody out, because you would think within their own evolutionary time they would have that idea of we have to be careful how we do this.
The prime directive.
Yeah, I mean it's because well, why don't they just land and let everybody know they're there? Well, maybe that's probably not a good idea to do that.
Right.
Maybe we need to be a little bit more subtle. Or what I think may have happened is, unfortunately, these aliens interacted with the wrong people, thinking these people would be the ones to maybe educate us on the existence and maybe ease that transition. And instead, these people have hoarded the information in attempts of trying to create weapons and to try to do things that these aliens never intended to do. They were coming here to maybe for peace and to exchange knowledge, and maybe in their society they've evolved beyond the pettiness of fighting one another. And we kind of touched on that in the Great Filter. I said the only thing what's going to make us put aside our pettiness to unite humanity under one umbrella is the idea that we're not alone.
Yeah.
That we're not alone.
But
we have to think differently in that regard. And we're just incapable of doing that right now because we still think in our core that we're it.
Right.
Well, we're still tribal, it's like we're against that religion, we're against this religion, we're against that race, we're against,
or the country, just the whole country.
The country.
We've had this very conversation on Aftermath a handful of times about how there's a few things that I think that would really bring humanity together, like regardless of race or what you believe or whatever, and it's like it is a common enemy of some kind.
There always is.
There are other things, but I feel like if some sort of threat externally was to come to Earth and say we're going to threaten Earth, I think at that point then we would all come together regardless of race or religion or country, and then we would all fight for Earth. But right now it's not that.
There are a significant number of people that follow this phenomena that believe that the government has sold us out, and the government, in exchange for technology, has allowed the aliens to take and abduct a certain amount of people per year. And, because when you look at all these cattle mutilations and the crop circles that are physically impossible to create, and some of the information that has been encoded in those, it just doesn't make sense. And why would we have 4 or 5 decades of people being kidnapped for their DNA? And then if you look at like the fairy things, they're kidnapped for their DNA. So it's the same story being recycled.
Right.
Why? Why do they need our DNA? Because if they're that powerful that they can, whoop, 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 across the universe, why do they need to come here and take ovary samples and sperm samples? And, why do they need to, put implants in your neck and up in your nasal cavity? And it makes no sense. It's just, you got to answer those kind of questions.
Maybe they know something that we don't know. Maybe they know what's going to happen here.
But couldn't they, if they approached a government and said, look at, you guys are going to hit an apocalypse in 300 years, and so we're trying to create a bank, a DNA bank, like a new ark. Don't you think that the governments would start sending them DNA samples of everybody that died just to create a DNA bank?
Right. That's true.
It's like, why do we have to kidnap all these kids?
Unless they're planning on they're grabbing DNA from us to perfectly synthesize something to just wipe us all out, externally.
They could be changing things.
I think if they want to, I don't think they would be here to wipe. I think they have the technology to reach our planet if they are coming from other places in the universe.
Right.
I don't know. Some say on the dark side of the moon. That it's
that they're terraforming and doing all this kind of
that
stuff.
There's stuff there that supposedly I've heard reports of astronauts of stuff that
military bases
that saw stuff over there. So, maybe they're us. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But to me, the idea if they want to take us out, I don't think we have anything. Anything that could hurt them. Now I don't know. Yeah, well, look, they're physical beings, and they would be susceptible to getting sick like any biological entity.
Except for all these grays that are supposedly just like a bio robot type of thing that isn't technically alive.
Yeah, isn't the grays the isn't that the bad ones?
I think so.
But
there's so many, we've got the ones that look like the Nordics, the Scandinavian aliens. We've got the grays. We've got big grays and little grays.
Some of it feels more like it's trying to achieve a political agenda or some sort of like belief system. But from what I've heard, like I think that from what people have said, like the grays are kind of like this lower tier subservient alien race, supposedly.
And they're the ones that are mentioned in a lot of kidnapping things.
Right.
They could be like the workers.
That's what I'm saying.
They're the ones they send out to
right, exactly,
to go do
the dirty work.
Do the dirty work.
Yeah.
It's I have more of a nefarious feeling of what they're up to than I think what you guys do.
What do you think?
I just, like I said, I don't know. But when you look at all those different things under that umbrella of all the stuff that's happening, it's not good. It's
But you
just,
think
it's
that
not
maybe do you think
They might be terraforming Earth slowly or genetically to
Right.
make it so interbreeding can be, because there's some people that say that aliens don't have souls, and that's why they love humans. It's because we are a spiritual creature. There's another train of thought that the jinn that's in the the various Arab books, that the jinn were made of fireless smoke. What if all this stuff that we're seeing is just jinn, which is kind of falls under the same umbrella as the demon stuff. So I don't know.
Did y'all see the recent video of the girl on the plane having the conniption fit, saying that wasn't a human being?
Mhm.
Yes.
Wasn't that strange?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone to get up in the middle of an airplane and start screaming and pointing at somebody saying, that person ain't human.
There are some psychiatrists that do believe that people with mental illness are seeing some other reality. Whether it's a demonic reality, whether it's just they're seeing something else that the rest of us aren't seeing. And
maybe it kind of I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can see that kind of like the idea that small children seem to
Oh yeah.
be able to perceive maybe supernatural events that maybe as you age,
you convince yourself
you
they don't
convince
exist.
they don't
or you age
exist.
out of it.
Maybe you're more open. And so people that may have these mental disorders, maybe the wiring is not done right, where that kind of natural washing out that happens doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they are. But that was a strange event that I saw, and it seems to be making rounds.
Yes.
It's gone viral.
Yeah.
That
Partially because I think it feels so. I've heard people say that, like, I've heard people use the word crazy a lot, where it's like, she seems crazy. Like, it's not like less so like in the idea of like she has credible evidence or whatever. So it's like, even though I feel like we're talking about aliens, the fact that
well, I don't know. Was that person? It could be a hybrid type human being.
Right.
I mean,
Look at David Icke, who's or Ike, who says that all these politicians and celebrities are all reptilian.
exactly. I've definitely heard of.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard that
And
there's a
videos where
reptilian
you'll
race.
see, like the pupils change and
Yeah.
kind of flash to this ovoid type of thing. It's creepy. So like I said, the Earth is far more complicated than we have ever been led to believe.
oh yeah,
Well, I'm telling you, it's. I think this is just going to get more and more because I mean these sightings they're showing up everywhere. Here they had the Pentagon released a video of a UFO flying over an active conflict zone in the Middle East in 2022. So.
That David Grush that you mentioned,
Yeah.
he said that between now and 2026, we're going to have a massive disclosure. Now, we've heard that before. We've heard of 2012 and all this kind of
oh
stuff.
yeah.
But that is the prediction from the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance and a few other things that we're gonna see this massive unveiling within the next couple of
Well,
years.
I think Bob Lazar has been pushing that, but too. But yeah, that David, he's like a 36-year vet of the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in Afghanistan, and this is a legit dude. I mean, he's saying, yeah, the United States has been in this game of suppressing this information. They have collected wreckage. And I do believe that's the reason you haven't heard, because they're trying to reverse engineer this, because it's the new arms race. And I believe other countries are trying to do the same thing. I think Russia, because Russia, China, they've all probably have dealt with this issue, and they're like, well, we need to find out how to make this thing work. Because
Right.
I mean, you think about it, if you can master anti-gravity tech,
if you can get off world,
I mean,
you rule
Oh yeah.
it's it.
Yep.
I mean, there's not a weapon somebody could use against you. I mean, there's because some of the speeds that some of these things can.
And they defy physics.
They
They
defy-
make 90-degree turns.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
so,
we can't do that. I mean, there's no human being can get into a craft and with our conventional tech and survive something like that. But, obviously, whatever it is, these other beings have been able to overcome that. And maybe, given time, our own advancements in technology will eventually overcome that. I mean, you would think the idea of somehow putting an anti-grav bubble around, I would think the idea is there. I mean, to me, there's been more things that are kind of outlandish that are possible. I mean, Einstein predicted time travel. It was theoretically possible.
I think Tesla did too, didn't he?
Maybe Tesla did too. So, yeah. I mean, so if those things are possible, why can't you develop anti-grav or where
photon propulsion,
whatever it might be. So,
it's interesting. It's interesting. I think it begets discussion. I think we've had a very interesting. We've gone all over the map today.
Yeah.
And gone back, thousands of years in history. It just shows you there's a lot of material out there that.
Yeah.
We're just not made aware of. Like I said, we've been dripped for 70 years, and I think that we're going to see the faucets turning on now.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
And this is what I'm saying is like I'm not saying that I'm not going to be sitting here saying that like none of it's real. I don't believe any of it, or that like whenever you're saying like that there's going to be some disclosure out there. I'm not saying like anything against it. I'm that's what I'm saying. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm not going to like bank my whole life on it right now because I don't have any personal experiences that really helps me in this situation. But if all of a sudden we start getting some stuff out here, we get like, if someone starts disclosing a whole bunch of stuff, I'll be like, all right, I was wrong. And that's okay. and here we are now in this new world where aliens are real and I have to figure out what that means, So that's where I'm at least.
We're only 100, and when was flight invented?
20s?
1906, I
yeah,
think.
06,
yeah.
So, when you think about that, we are less than 120 years from the first rudimentary flights.
Oh,
and
yeah.
look at how far we've come. So where are our kids and our kids' kids going to, what kind of technology are they going to see?
Yeah.
And where is it coming from?
You're right.
Well, yeah. I still think though we've kind of hit a little bit of a wall, I think, because really nothing.
The great filter.
Yeah, we haven't. To me, though, we haven't really made any big jumps that I have seen.
The latest thing has been AI stuff we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean AI, but I mean I'm talking about like fundamentally now. Like planes.
Yeah.
I mean
the technology hasn't changed.
The
much
technology
since the
hasn't
60s.
changed much. So I mean, I think there's some. I think I saw something. Like, I think Richard Branson went off into kind of low Earth orbit or something with a passenger. So I mean, once I can start to see like jets that can go from
or get through the Van Allen belt and all.
Right,
this.
jets that can go from can take me. I can leave New York City and be in Japan in 2 hours.
Yeah.
When we kind of get that, to me is what I'm seeing as far as that jump in speed and those kind of things. I just haven't seen it. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I'm hoping to. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I like to see the advancement of technology.
Of course. I think the one thing so far that I've seen that has been a big one that a lot of people have talked about that we probably won't get our hands on, like it's commercially available, but it won't be like consumer grade for a while, is the Apple Vision Pro. It's a new Apple product that has been released right now, and it's like,
what is it?
It's a VR headset. Well,
it's VR.
It's not
Okay.
VR. I'm sorry, it's not VR. It's AR. It's augmented reality, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's intended for you to look through and see the real world, but be able to just like swipe your fingers and touch your fingers together to click on things.
So it basically puts you in a digital world.
Basically,
real.
But I'm able to see you through this headset. But then of course I can have like apps pulled up, and I could like move things around, and like I could just be sitting on like a couch, and
Kind of almost like what's that movie, Ready Player One?
Yeah. But the thing is, like, it's supposedly from everyone that I've talked about, you can go watch some videos on it. Like the technology is very flushed out, even though it's like a demo. It's also very expensive. It's like $3,000.
Well, it's the way it is.
Right,
It's
right.
anything.
It's very
new,
premium, and so. But the thing is, like, it is.
Cell phones were super expensive
You're right.
when they first came out.
You're right.
TVs. I remember going and buying a TV back in the 90s, early 90s, and you would pay $1,500 for a 26-inch TV.
Yep.
You had to save up for it. Now you can go into any Costco and pay $400 for a 26, if they even carry them, because now you get 57
for $1,200. You can probably
70
get
inch, 75, 85-inch TVs now.
It's like the cost of technology has become so much less expensive.
Right. But the thing is,
we'll see it.
Right. And I'm not saying that's never going to happen. I'm just saying right now for this like what is supposed to feel like an Apple demo of something and whatever feels, from what I've been told, it feels very flushed out. It's also $3,600. So you're going to pay a premium for it.
For right now, you will,
Right.
and some people will spend that kind of money, and,
You're right.
and that's
Look at how many people paid $2,500 to go down on the Titan.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There's always somebody with deep pockets.
Yeah, that's true. People have a lot of money to burn, so why not buy $3,500
Yeah.
AR headset?
You're right. But it's supposedly, from what I've been told, like it's supposed to be.
So what is the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality?
So virtual reality, like I have a virtual reality headset, and whenever you put it on, you get fully enclosed in like a virtual space.
Right.
So like I have a way to tap the side of the headset, and then of course the cameras on the outside will then show me the real world.
Okay.
In like a black and white like version, like a very low quality version of it. But the intention of it is to have these screens in front of my eyes that can then project they can put me in a full space, so I can be like in a different home, and I can like with these hand joysticks I can like pick up objects in this digital world, whereas the Apple augmented reality is whenever you put it on, it projects through like what this actual table in front of us is. So like
Pokemon Go, kind of, where you're seeing the layers of
right.
technology.
But
All right, I'll be honest. I thought it was kind of really
Right.
that's just naming how they use it.
The big thing is that there's no controllers, so it's all hand gestures, and apparently the cameras that track the hand gestures are incredibly amazing. Where like, I mean, you could be sitting on a couch and then just very, very slightly push your fingers together. That's how you click things. So I could like be. And also the eye tracking. It can track your eyes and look at what app you're looking at. And so I can just like look at an app and then put my fingers together and it clicks on it. So it's like that kind of stuff.
It seems like we could just do an episode on emerging technology.
You're right. There's a lot of stuff happening. I'm not saying like that it's not that. You're right. I think we're at a bit of a stall in some technological stuff. But at the same time, I do think that, so technology in its own way is moving.
But let's tie it up with a last question.
There you go.
We started this episode talking about soft disclosure and whether it was happening. Do you each think that soft disclosure is happening right now?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I do too.
I think that there's something happening, and like I said probably 100 times so far. Is it aliens? Maybe. Are they going to probably tell us, who knows? Would I be surprised if it was also like some other country that was trying to do some things? Maybe, but who knows? So, anyways,
great episode.
Great. I mean, it's a lot of stuff.
And believe me, there's a lot more out there, and then we may revisit if there's more information that comes out. We'll revisit this topic.
And we would love to hear from our listeners.
Yes.
Get feedback. What do you think? Is soft disclosure going on? Or what's the timeline that you think we're going to see these big changes?
Right. And we have a Facebook page /Retrospect Pod where you can leave those comments or those questions, or if you want to give us some suggestions. We also have an email at getoffendedtogether@gmail.com where you can also give us feedback as well. But anyways, until next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Take care.